This episode of the Creep Street Podcast is brought to you by Martini Coffee Roasters. You know, people always look at me weird when I say I start off every morning with a big old martini. But then I set them straight, and I tell them I'm talking about Martini Coffee Roasters coffee. A delicious coffee made by the Martini family. They roast their coffee using a traditional method of sight and sound to roast those little babies to perfection. And they also sell green coffee beans for those home roasters out there. And right now, fans of the Creep Street Podcast can get 20% off their entire order by using the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Once again, for 20% off your order, use the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Martini Coffee Roasters, the perfect coffee to keep you creeps caffeinated.
You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
And you have arrived at Creep Street Podcast. Welcome one, welcome all.
Oh, yeah.
We are about to have some fun. Now, a little disclaimer up top.
Oh, yeah.
Maureen's feeling a bit under the weather.
Yeah, am I sick? Is it allergies? No one can know. Unfortunately, we don't have the science.
Yes.
So I'm sorry I sound like this. Hopefully by our next episode, I won't sound like this even at all.
Right.
But you know what, we thought, let's get an episode out.
Absolutely. We haven't missed one yet, and doggone it, we're not going to now. They've listened to my voice when I've been sick.
And I think I've been sick before too.
Yeah, and so, just so if Mo sounds a little under the weather, she's feeling in her spirit great.
I'm ready to creep.
She's feeling 10 feet tall, but her voice sounds a little,
It sounded better. Yeah, I'll say that.
But we know, we love you folks. We know you love us. We're going to have a damn good time.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, let's kick this thing off. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Creep Street Podcast, Twitter at Creep Street Pod. We also have a TikTok. Follow us there for all sorts of fun stuff. Now, on our Facebook, we have a little forum where daily we like to interact with our listeners. It's called Citizens of the Milky Way, a Creep Street fan page. Anyone is welcome to join. You just click the Let Me In button, and we will let you in. We like to let everyone know, earlier in the week, what that week's episode's going to be. People post stories and stuff. It's a lot of fun. And, of course, if once a week is not enough for you, and folks, it is not.
It's clinically not.
Clinically not. You just head on over to patreon.com/creepstreetpodcast for all sorts of goodies. In fact, we've got to give a shout out right now.
We have to
our newest Patreon subscriber.
Yes.
Folks, give it on up for the brutal Brenda Gonzalez.
Wow.
Brenda, we are so happy you're here.
Thank you times a million.
And we hope you enjoy all the goodies waiting for you over at Patreon. And if you want to be just like the brutal Brenda Gonzalez, you head on over to patreon.com/creepstreetpodcast. Now, Maureen.
Yeah.
Last week, we gave them the Stratford Poltergeist.
We sure did. We did. We went for it.
And boy, oh boy, I had fun compiling that one.
Yeah.
So freaky with the mannequins. Well, you know what? We're sticking to the weird. We're sticking to the creepy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Maureen, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about High Strangeness in Appalachia.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We are excited for this one now.
Oh, yeah.
Just so you know, there are certain aspects of Appalachian High Strangeness that we will exclude because they're so big they're going to get their own episode. For example, Mothman. Mm-hmm. Mothman is technically an Appalachia. That's where it's most famous, what happened in West Virginia and everything. So the bigger ones we're saving for their own episodes. Yeah. But we thought it would be a good idea because there's so many smaller creatures and paranormal entities that are all a part of this that don't really get any of the spotlight.
Right. And we also just wanted to talk a little bit just about like the weird things that happen and the weird feelings that people can get.
Yes.
And so we'll definitely do multiple parts of this in the future. You know, we'll come back to this.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely do multiple parts of this. We will come back to this, filler out, and then of course some of the big daddies will get their own episodes, of course. Now, just a couple things to say at the top before we really go for it and dive deep into today's episode.
Please, Mama.
First of all, it's just the pronunciation of Appalachia/Appalachia.
Yeah.
And you know what? I might go back and forth a little bit. I might say Appalachia one sentence and Appalachia the other. You know what I mean? It could happen. What I have noticed from my research is that it seems like Appalachia probably is the way you're supposed to say it.
Yeah.
And that's the way that people from Appalachia call it. But some people think like if you're not from Appalachia, you should call it Appalachia. But
Yeah.
then some people think like, no, you should call it Appalachia.
It's
Even if you're not from there, you can't win.
It's kind of like when people from Louisville want you to say Louisville.
And it's like, okay, well, I'm not from Kentucky, so I don't know, like,
Yeah.
I don't say Louisville.
And I like Louisville or Louisville, but I don't have to say Louisville because it's spelled fucking Louisville. So, I mean, my mouth doesn't work the way yours does because I'm not from there.
Yeah.
So
Right.
my mouth says Louisville. It doesn't mean I don't appreciate Louisville.
Yeah, right.
Just because when you say it, it sounds like you're choking on a caramel apple, doesn't mean I have to say it that way.
Right. And it's just everyone has a different opinion on how people are supposed to pronounce it and everything. So just so you know, we're aware of that.
Yeah.
And we're trying our darndest.
Yeah.
Off of that, a tangent off of that, is that Dylan and I are not from Appalachia.
No, but we have a sweet spot for it.
Yes.
Though. We've been many times. I have always felt a spiritual connection to Appalachia. I love it.
Yeah,
I love
it's a beautiful place. And what we're going to be talking about today, of course, has to do with a lot of the paranormal and weird things going on and spooky things going on. And on Reddit and other forums and stuff like that, when people are asking about these scary stories, a lot of people are like, you know what, like Appalachia isn't all like that. And you know, there are so many other parts about Appalachia that are wonderful. And some people even say like, what's really scary about Appalachia is like, you know, the food deserts and all of this stuff. And all of what I just said is completely valid. And I stand by that. And I agree with that. It's just, gosh darn it, we're a horror podcast.
We're a horror podcast.
So that's just what we're going to talk. We're talking about it. And us talking about it isn't like poking fun or putting anyone down.
No.
We're into it.
We love Appalachia.
And we love spooky stuff.
Absolutely.
So that's just why we're talking about it today and all that stuff. I just wanted to get that out there.
Absolutely.
Because our dear Appalachians, they're proud of their damn home, and as they should be.
Yeah.
Now, let me list off my sources.
Please.
We have a great article from The Trek titled Appalachian Specters and Superstitions, Campfire Optional.
Ooh.
Then another great article from Kasian.com, Appalachian Folklore Part 1, Beings and Creatures. Then an article from the Science Survey titled The Spine-Chilling Stories of Appalachia by Irene Yimengol. Then we have AppalachianHistory.net, Everyday Appalachian Superstitions by Sarah Lodon Thomas. A ton of Reddit, a little smattering of TikTok, and also a great podcast called Time Suck.
Oh, yes.
And the episode is Appalachian Cryptids.
Yes.
So a lot of you may be thinking, what the heck is Appalachia?
Yeah.
Where even is it? So it is a mountain range on the eastern part of North America. And technically it, goes up into Canada and all the way down. But what we really think of Appalachia is really like southern New York to like Alabama. But when people say Appalachia, they usually mean like Pennsylvania and down. is usually kind of what people are vibing with. Of course, not all, that's an overstatement, of course, but a lot of what we're going to be talking about today really focuses on like the central and southern areas
Right.
of Appalachia. So the Appalachian Mountains were formed over 500 million years ago. Okay, so pretty old, all right?
Oh, yeah?
And they are some of the oldest mountain ranges on Earth. And where they are has kind of been where they have been forever, basically. Even going back to like Pangea,
Right.
when it was all one, damn continent. Where Appalachia is now is basically where it was at that time too, like millions and millions and millions of years ago.
Right.
So these mountains have been there in the same space for so long. And when anything is that old or has experienced so much change and so much happening in one place,
Yeah.
of course, that's going to be rich with history.
Oh, yeah.
Appalachia is known for its beautiful forests that are very lush. It's, very deep and damp. It can be gorgeous, but of course it can be a little mysterious and scary sometimes as well. Now, around 16,000 years ago, various different Native American tribes settled into the region. Some were the Cherokee, Iroquois, Potawatomi, and Shawnee tribes. And of course, they were there for a long-ass time, developing their own rich culture and society, or societies. And then much later on, of course, European settlers came in, as well as enslaved Africans, to create a brand new culture that we
Yes.
now think of today as Appalachian.
For example, but it just goes to show you how much of a melting pot it was. The banjo is kind of what, if you had to think of an instrument that represented Appalachia, it would be the banjo, folk music, that sort of bluegrass, that sort of music. The banjo is actually an African instrument.
Yes.
It was born in Africa. And so it just goes to show you how all these cultures kind of blended together over the generations in Appalachia to create its own distinct, and we see that in lots of places we talk about, like New Orleans, or how you have these different, French culture, African cultures coming together to blend to make this whole new thing. It's the same in Appalachia.
Yeah, exactly. And it's super interesting. And like a lot of the people that came over from Europe to live in Appalachia, in this, mountainous region, a lot of them were Scots-Irish and a lot of German as well. But I think it's pretty safe to say that the Scots-Irish is really what, they were the main European settlers of the area.
Right.
And of course, not all of them, but a lot of them kind of came over here and had a little bit of, they kind of had a distrust for the British.
Right.
And even though, Scotland is, a part of Britain, but it's a whole damn situation. So because a lot of these people that came over from Scotland and Ireland, that they didn't really trust the British, or they were, wary of the government and things like that due to their own treatment back in Scotland and Ireland.
Right.
They started to create these communities that were really tight-knit and that would really take care of each other.
Right.
And that are a little unsure about outsiders.
Yeah.
And that has really gone on through till today.
Today, absolutely.
That has really affected the culture of Appalachia and what people are like. And I think it's so easy to just think of Appalachia or Appalachians as just people that are like, oh, they're just like rednecks or hillbillies or,
right,
whatever. And they just are so like closed off and blah, 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 blah. When really it's like, no, that was a way of survival for them for so long.
Absolutely.
And I think it really only makes sense.
And their distrust of government and stuff like that, it comes from a place of where they were in the right to distrust.
Yeah.
Many dark things have happened that were committed by the government in that area and whatnot, and it's so in some ways that attitude, you can kind of understand it in some ways.
Yeah. And it's kind of moved forward in a way that a lot of times people think it could hinder them as well. Just insofar that, like, a lot of people think that a lot of alien encounters and UFO sightings and stuff like that happen in Appalachia because, one, they might not tell, like, the government about it.
Right.
And two, if they do tell the government about it, no one will believe them because everyone just thinks like, oh, they're poor, they're uneducated.
Exactly.
They don't know what they're talking about, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
When that couldn't be further from the truth. There's a lot of incredibly highly educated people, and there's a lot of incredibly uneducated people and dumb people living in every city.
Every world. And
you know,
also...
you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't...
Yes, and even if someone's not the smartest, doesn't mean they're lying.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, this area is just, it's so fascinating. It really even affects their religion as well. There are a variety of religions, of course, Christianity being the most popular, and there are so many different sects of Christianity throughout Appalachia. And a lot of them are just like these very small congregations because there's kind of a distrust for like religious hierarchies.
Right, yeah.
Once again, not always. There are a bunch of Catholics that live
of course.
there as well, you know, obviously, but it's worth being said.
Absolutely.
Because of all of this wonderful collaboration of different cultures coming together to create this beautiful culture in Appalachia, they, of course, have some ways of life.
Of course.
They've got some sayings, they've got some rules. And here's some rules, or maybe some people could even consider them superstitions.
Oh, okay, very good, okay.
That exist within Appalachia.
All right.
Always leave a building through the same door you entered.
Oh, interesting, okay.
If you see a black cat crossing the road in front of you, draw an X in the air 3 times to avoid the bad luck. You gotta do it fast, though, because you've gotta finish it before the cat reaches the other side of the road.
Ah, okay.
When you harvest apples from a tree, leave at least 1 to keep the devil away.
Whoa, all right.
This one is kind of all over, but if you spill salt, throw a pinch over your left shoulder. This keeps the devil away.
Okay, that's one that's been around a while. Yeah, I've heard of that one.
And here's another one you've probably heard of. If you're drinking spirits, pour a little out on the ground to satisfy the spirits.
All right, baby. Okay.
Pour one out for your homies.
That's right.
You know? And then if you want good luck in the coming year on New Year's Eve, open your front and back doors at midnight and let the old year blow out.
Absolutely.
Yes. Now, there's another practice that is very popular in Appalachia, and I have noticed this before. I just didn't know it was for a reason, and that is a lot of people paint the ceiling of their front porch blue, and this is called haint blue.
The ceiling of their front porch, like the inside underneath, like the ceiling?
Yeah.
Okay, and I've heard of haints.
Haints, it's like haunt. It's like a ghost.
Yeah.
Some of my sources said it's kind of various shades of blue, and some sources say it's a very specific shade of blue. But what I've seen, it's usually kind of like a robin's egg kind of blue-ish.
Oh, so very pretty, almost like a sky blue.
It's that's why I didn't think it was for a reason. I thought it was just a popular thing to do. I was like, this looks very nice.
Well, very nice indeed.
I never thought about it, but the reason why it's done and why it's called haint blue is because the belief, and this is not just in Appalachia, this is all over, is that ghosts or spirits can't cross water.
Oh.
So the idea is like, you know, a ghost or a spirit will get confused with the blue and won't enter your home.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, that is haint blue.
Okay.
And I'm sure there are so many more little things like this that I don't know about. So if any of you out there are from Appalachia, or your family's from there, or you just have a strong interest in it, let us know. We'll add all of these things to our next episode whenever we do it. And, as we were saying before, and just to reiterate, like, Appalachian culture is so specific to Appalachia. However, it really informed the rest of the world and the country, kind of, like, what we think of as, like, quote unquote Americana.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like, all of America is America, obviously. But just
obviously.
like so much of Appalachian culture is just really affected like what I said, what we consider to be Americana.
Right. It was kind of adopted in a more broad sense.
Yeah. It's a beautiful place, a beautiful culture. But of course there's going to be some weird activity, some strangeness. And there are a lot of things that are worth checking in on. There's the snallygaster, which is like this like reptilian bird combination thing. Spooky. Some people even say Bigfoot, for Christ's sake.
I'm sure I've heard.
Oh yeah. There are the Brown Mountain Lights.
Oh yeah.
Of North Carolina, which essentially it's kind of what it sounds like. There's this area called the Brown Mountains.
Yes.
And there are some unexplainable lights.
Yes.
That go on. And it's very easy to think that, oh, that's just, people seeing a train from far away.
Right.
Or things like that. And I'm sure some of the time that is what it is.
Right.
But there's also a lot of thinking about maybe the pressure and the humidity of the area that causes these lights to be able to be seen in a way that we don't quite understand.
Right, yes.
That's fascinating. There's the Schnellergeist, which
Whoa.
kind of became the Snallygaster.
Okay.
And, they are some nasty motherfuckers. They suck the blood of their victims.
Wow.
We have the Moon-Eyed People. I believe this stems from Cherokee legend and belief.
Oh, interesting, okay.
But has spread throughout Appalachian culture, today. And the Moon-Eyed People are short, pale-skinned humanoids that have very large, bright eyes.
In a way, it kind of sounds like a gray alien.
Yes, it does. And a lot of people believed that because of their pale skin and these bright eyes, these beings were sensitive to light, so they became nocturnal. But what's kind of interesting about them is that they weren't necessarily considered to be like mythical. It's not like they were legends of old, like even back, hundreds of years ago. It's not even like it was like that. People believed that they truly were another race of people.
Oh, really?
Kind of similar to what some people in Europe thought about elves.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
And, a lot of people that were Cherokee believed that these Moon-Eyed People were a threat. So they would chase them back into the caves and to try and, keep them away. Some people think that the Moon-Eyed People date all the way back to 400 BC.
Wow, okay.
Whereas some people think it's much more recent than that. But either way, crazy. Long story, or long,
history right.
there. But what I really think is interesting is that some people think that these weren't aliens or cryptids or anything. These were just Europeans. These were just white people.
Oh.
Some people think that some Europeans came to America much earlier than Christopher Columbus when he quote unquote discovered America.
Right. Well, and we know there were people here, but like, North America includes like Canada. It actually includes Mexico. Like, I know they say like, I could be wrong. Forgive me, history buffs. I think Leif Erikson, he was the...
Oh, yes. He did a whole situation.
Yes, the Viking explorer. They said, I think he landed he went to like Iceland and Great, and they think he landed in like Newfoundland on Canada and stuff. So... Yeah. Like, they think he might have been maybe the first European to actually touch what is North American continent. Right.
So, I think most people can agree, going back to 400 BC is a stretch. I don't think people think that there were Europeans coming to North America then.
Right.
But maybe much earlier than the 1400s.
Right,
possibly.
right.
So, yeah, I think that's just an interesting thought. And it also really reminds me a lot about the cave situation in general.
Yes.
I don't know a ton about the, geology of exactly how caves are formed or how caves and mountains have worked together, or, I don't know the details. But what I do know is that where these Appalachian mountains are, there's also a fuck ton of caves.
Right, yes.
And caves are known for also being kind of like hotbeds of supernatural activity.
Yes, they are.
And even thought to be the home or portals of very strange beings.
Oh, yeah.
Dylan and I have talked or have mentioned so many times a fantastic series on YouTube called Holler.
Yes.
Which follows a group of people starting off investigating and doing some more research into the Kelly Hopkinsville goblins.
Yep, the Kelly Hopkinsville goblins. That's an example of something that is a part of High Strangeness in Appalachia, but it was just such a big story we give it its own.
That will get its own.
And there's probably going to be one or two in this that we've already mentioned that they'll probably get its own episode. Like Brown Mountain Lights is a pretty big.
That could get its own.
We'll probably do its own, and Moon Eyed People even, I think, could probably get their own break-off episode once we, learn more about them. But there's so much, and that's why we wanted to use this episode to kind of highlight the lesser known ones, the ones that aren't Mothman or the Kelly Hopkinsville goblins or what's the one we covered? It was like the
Flatwoods Monster?
The Flatwoods Monster.
Yes. And like Dylan said, there's so much about Appalachia that we wanted to shine a light on some of the lesser known things, and really wanted to cover some things that don't even really have a name.
Absolutely.
And that's what I really want to focus on for the rest of the episode. There are a lot of things that are just kind of, it seemed to me, that people just know living in Appalachia, or at least you're told from a very early age. And one of those things is you need to be very, very careful around the woods.
Oh, yes.
Even though a lot of these people call the woods their home, that doesn't mean that you should get cocky and think that you know everything.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta stay humble.
Absolutely.
Apparently, you are not supposed to whistle in the woods.
Holy.
That is a big no-no.
Whoa. Okay. A line has been drawn in the sand.
Also, if you hear someone calling your name in the woods, do not respond.
In some ways, that almost seems obvious.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you hear someone, you might, I could understand why you even though when you hear it, you think, oh, well, that's obvious. Mm-hmm. But when you're actually experiencing it, you might have a different.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because maybe it's someone who needs help or, you know what I mean?
And a lot of these stories that we'll get into here in a minute, they say like, oh, I was with someone and they just weren't within my eyesight.
Right.
So it's easy to think that it was the person that is out there.
And I'm sure whatever these things are, as we've seen in other paranormal cases we've covered, they can sometimes imitate voices of people you know.
They can sound just like your friend or whatever, yeah. But you might notice like, oh, that's coming from a different direction than I know my friend is in.
Yes.
That kind of thing. Basically, it seems like if you think you saw something, if you think you heard something, no, you didn't.
Oh, boy.
That's kind of what they're like. If you saw something, no, you didn't. If you heard something, no, you didn't. It's a lot of deny. Deny till you die.
Okay.
And you know what? If it's keeping you alive, gosh, God bless you.
Okay.
Now, since you all know, Dylan and I are not from Appalachia.
Right.
I still wanted to get some first-hand accounts of things going on there. I don't know a ton of people that live there or are from there. So for the next part that we do this, once again, if you are from there or know someone from there, whatever, please reach out to us. Email us at creepstreetpodcast@gmail.com or DM us on any of our socials, and we'll add you to our next episode. But for today, I used good old Reddit, baby.
Absolutely. And just a quick side note, going off of what you just said, it is May.
Oh, yeah.
In a couple months, we're going to be doing another Listener Stories episode.
Before you know it.
So start getting those in.
Please.
Start getting them in. It'll be on us before we know it.
Oh, big time. So yes, a lot of these stories that we're going to read next are from Reddit, but they're not from No Sleep.
Okay.
So these are supposed to be
right.
real.
This isn't.
This isn't creative writing.
Right. It's not intended to be a short fiction or something. Right. Now, we don't know if these.
We don't know
who
these people are. They could be lying,
but they're supposed to be real. Just so you know, not saying they aren't either.
Right.
Or
right,
they are.
right.
We're just saying these are supposed to be real.
Yes. So I was planning on reading these.
Please.
But my voice.
Yeah.
So we're gonna pass it over to the lovely, the just wickedly talented Dylan Hackworth.
That's right.
So Dylan, please get us started with this first little story.
This was posted by a Reddit user who goes by cat_RI.
Got lost in the woods once. Took a wrong turn. Phone died while I was on with 911 and State Park Police found me around 10 o'clock. Creepy part is that I heard people walking around in the woods twice and called out for help. Both times, they just stopped, shined lights at me, then left without saying anything.
So that's just a little thing, of course.
Okay, very creepy, especially because, they're probably thinking, hey, I'm right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so weird.
It's kind of one of those things where it's like, were those really, other people just walking through the woods? And maybe they are thinking, oh, I know when I'm in the woods to not respond.
That's actually a great point, because part of me thought, well, maybe it's whatever this is luring them deeper into the woods.
Yeah.
But you're right. It could just be regular folks who know the rules.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe there was some nefarious activity going on.
Maybe someone's hiding. Maybe it's still people, but they're hiding a body or something.
Yeah, right.
Or hiding a thing of cash they've stolen. Who knows?
Right. Or maybe it's something totally supernatural.
Absolutely.
Or paranormal. I don't know. And that is another thing I meant to mention before. Another thing that's kind of told to you when you're growing up in Appalachia, apparently, is that, if you hear a woman crying or a baby crying or anyone crying or whatever screaming in the woods, don't run to help them.
Wow, okay.
Which sounds terrible.
It goes against every natural instinct, especially a baby crying. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. What you're supposed to do is still do something, like call the police. And have the police, get in there.
I wonder, does superstition, did the police, do Appalachian police get a pass?
Right,
from
I
the
don't
supernatural?
Really know.
Because they gotta go look.
I mean, yeah. Maybe because there's multiple and they have body cams. I don't really know.
Yeah. Hey, I'm all for a paranormal entity that respects the law.
Oh, come on.
That respects the law.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. But this is actually good advice just no matter where you live. And I know it sounds bad, but for example, if you are on, this has nothing to do with Appalachia, but it could happen in Appalachia. If you're driving down a road at night and it's, a dark road and there's not many people around or no one around or whatever, and you see a car pulled over with someone sitting in the car or something like that and they look like they might need help, don't get out of your car to help them. Go call the police.
Yeah.
To go help them. And that is more so out of a they could be trying to lure you to kill you way.
Right. Or
not as as a paranormal way. It's just you gotta be careful about that shit.
More just general safety.
Yeah. And that is something that comes up a lot in Appalachia too, that we're not really focusing on today, but maybe a future episode we will, is cult activity and other kind of true crime type activity going on out there.
Right.
And once again, this isn't me saying everyone in Appalachia, like a dark cult runs every small town. I don't think that.
Of course not.
Cults are everywhere.
Yes.
But they are there too, and they're their own kind of flavor.
Right.
So it's worth talking about on our next episode. Now, I would love to read a couple more experiences in Appalachia. So here is another one from a Reddit user named Mary Bowman.
My ex-father-in-law was from Kentucky. He told us this story and swore it was the absolute truth. He and some buddies were out hunting one night. It had started to downpour, so they were looking for a place to get dry. They came across this weathered farmhouse and went inside. After building a fire in the fireplace, they were all sitting around, having a good time. He explained that meant they were enjoying some moonshine his nephew had made. They kept hearing noises, and in the upstairs that sounded like furniture being dragged across the floor. One of the men went to the bottom of the stairs and yelled up, "If you don't knock it off up there, I'm coming up there to join you." At that time, the noises stopped. They settled in for the night and fell asleep. In the morning, the man who had yelled up the stairs was dead.
Wow.
I mean, come on.
In a way, maybe he did join them.
Yeah. Yes.
If it was spirits, maybe they took him at his word.
Yeah.
They were like, okay, come and dance, big guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Some weird stuff is going on. All right, we've got another encounter. This one from the Kentucky-Virginia border from T. Little 91. Dylan, here we go.
I live in eastern Kentucky, close to Virginia. The house I live in was originally built in the mid-1800s. I hear odd things all the time, including the water turning itself on in the kitchen, to my radio changing stations by itself. By far the creepiest thing that has ever happened was when I was around 10 years old. I was asleep and woke up and felt as if I was being looked at. I turned my head, and there was a person on the other end of the room. I blinked and it was gone. I dismissed it as me seeing things and went back to bed. A few minutes later, I heard something outside. I looked out and there seemed to be the same person outside, and they were trying their best to get inside. I yelled for my parents, and when they came in, the figure disappeared again. A few years ago, my brother was in his room, which is right next to mine. He was woken up by the sound of someone yelling, "Code Blue," over and over, which is very, very strange because we live an hour away from the nearest hospital. He then looked out his window and saw the same figure standing outside from years earlier. He did his best to take a picture of this person, and it disappeared again. To this day, the only proof we have of this is the picture he took, and I can only sleep if I keep the curtains closed.
Wow, kind of reminds me of the Black Flash.
Yes, and I know that story is it's not super exciting, obviously, but I still wanted to mention it because, like you said, it reminds me of so many other things.
Yes, absolutely.
Like the idea, this is another idea that is really preached on in Appalachia, apparently, is that you got to sleep with the curtains drawn.
Oh, okay.
You have to close your curtains when you go to sleep.
Really?
The idea is that if you don't, something will watch you through your window.
Wow, okay.
And we have heard lots of stories over the years of people laying in their bed, trying to sleep or whatever, and they look out their window, and maybe they'll see a weird humanoid figure, an owl.
Right.
Which a lot of people think is like a precursor to an alien.
Right, like
that.
Yeah.
Literally, the owls are aliens. It's like a whole thing in alien lore.
Right, and also remember, a lot of people would blame the Flatwoods Monster on being a barn owl.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this idea, I definitely wanted to touch on. Now we have another story, and this comes from Reddit user Dems My Feet.
Whoa!
And we're going to use them for the next couple stories here. They really popped off, and we're ready to share their stories on Reddit.
My God.
So Dylan, here we go.
We've got a buddy that everyone has said for years has something attached to him that follows him wherever he goes. When he's doing okay, less depressed, not on weeks-long benders, it is less and pretty much disappears. When he's on a bender and being self-destructive, he says it turns into a real thing. He hit rock bottom a while back and we took him in for somewhere to dry out. We have a house we don't really live in, just stay some weekends. We're working on it and he's handy. Sat with him through detoxes and withdrawals and felt like he was coming out of it. We left to visit family and came back at night. The forest behind the house was dead silent and blacker than black. We got inside uneasy and found him unresponsive with a bottle in his hand. We had some old liquor bottles in the basement and didn't even think about it. He apparently sniffed them out. Got him in bed, on his side with a cup of water in the living room on an air mattress, feeling like we're getting stared at. The husband started to ask and I shushed him. He took the baby to bed with him while I made her a bottle. All the while, I'm shaking. We have a raised porch with no ground access. The sliding door to it is in the kitchen. I'm standing at the sink, defrosting breast milk, and my ears are screaming. Every hair on my body is standing up because in my peripheral vision, there's something standing at the door. I've always been told you don't look, you don't listen, you don't acknowledge, so I didn't. I did my business and calmly walked to our bedroom, even though my little lizard brain is telling me to run. Buddy woke up next morning, didn't remember anything. Weird shit happens around the house now that didn't before. We lived there almost a decade with no complaints, but now I've got to figure out a cleanse to run it off. I like sitting on my porch at night, but not really feeling it as of late.
So yes, very kind of unclear about what exactly was going on there.
Yeah. Interesting that it's tied to his addictions.
Yes.
Interesting, and we talk about how these things might prey on negative feelings, so that would make sense. But also, maybe there's something too about being in a different state of mind, whether you're inebriated or on psychedelics, that makes kind of, even alcohol maybe to some extent, lessens that veil, you know what I mean?
Right. And another thing that came up again and again and again on my research was the phenomenon of it being very quiet when it shouldn't be quiet.
Yes. Yep.
Like the woods. It is nighttime, so it's, gonna be quieter, obviously.
Right.
But there's a difference between it being quiet and then there being an absence of sound.
Yes. And darker than dark.
Yes. And a lot of people say that about being in the woods in Appalachia. When something weird is going on, there's no sound at all.
Wow.
And how weird that is. And it's also with this, it makes me wonder, so maybe this thing was already following him, but maybe the fact that he was in the woods in Appalachia was able to draw it out more.
Right.
Or maybe this thing that was looking at the friend through the glass sliding door was something completely separate. Maybe that wasn't even the thing that follows around her friend.
Right.
I don't know.
Exactly. Good point.
And that was just an example, too, of what I said before about if you think you see something, no, you didn't. Just act like everything is fine.
Absolutely.
And that is the thing in horror movies that does kind of drive me crazy, when the dad is always like, it's fine, nothing's wrong. You know what I mean? Where you're like, maybe something is wrong and we should do something about it. But this is kind of different, where it's they do believe it's there.
Yes.
They're just saying the way we deal with it is by not.
Absolutely. Right.
Just maybe that's just the safest thing you can do.
Right.
All right. Now we have another wonderful story from Dems My Feet.
All right.
My family has been in western North Carolina and East Tennessee forever. All the family was Scottish, Irish, and German. As a result, some of the lore from Europe and some of the Cherokee got woven in and passed down. My granny, great-great-grandmother, was a fine Christian woman and healer. My dad almost died when he was 6, in and out of the hospital. Doctors were confused, and Dad's mom was at a loss. Dad's dad insisted on taking him to Granny, but she didn't, quote, believe in all that witchery. It's the devil's work. Pawpaw was desperate and loaded my dad up anyway. Granny took a look at him, prayed over him, took a walk in the woods, came back with some plants, made a poultice, spread it on his chest, and bandaged it. He slept overnight peacefully. She woke him up, washed him, and he was fine. No fever, no cough, no mucus, no rash. She could also read tea leaves, tell you the birth order and sex of your babies, even if you weren't pregnant yet. People came from all around for her to help. They talked out the side of their mouths, calling her a witch when she showed up at church, though. She lived well past 100, died on her birthday.
So that one isn't really spooky.
Right, but it gives you an insight into the culture.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And also the idea, too, that it's this idea about being a healer and using the bounty of nature to heal others or to heal yourself or whatever isn't considered witchcraft.
Right.
To many people. To her, it's she still went to church, was a Christian person, but still has this witchy side to her, honestly.
Right. Yes.
What we would call witchy.
Well, it also goes to show you witchcraft is not a religion.
Right.
You can apply... Now, Wicca is a religion.
yeah.
That's a completely different thing that utilizes witchcraft.
Yeah.
But witchcraft is not a religion. You can be... It's almost like a tool set that you can really apply to any faith you want, in a way.
Yeah.
Some people claim themselves to be Christian witches or any kind of witch. You know, it's not a religion, but a tool set, rather.
Yeah. You know, the Catholic Church would say no, but there are a lot of Catholic people that consider themselves to be Catholic that are witches as well, or that use witchcraft.
Absolutely.
As well. It's a whole damn thing. Now, Dems My Feet has another nugget here. Not even a nugget, a wonderful story.
Okay.
That I think we really gotta talk about. Dylan, take it away.
Let's hear him out.
I love the woods. I love the woods. The mountains are home, but there's some hollers you don't venture into. Bad blood, bad earth, something, but it's not a place for humans to go. There was a holler like that next to the one my family settled in. The woods were blacker, the air colder, and crazy noises came from it at night. We were camping on family property next to the creek. I was with all my older cousins who loved to scare me, and I loved to be scared, but always approached it all with disbelief as a result of them always teasing me and doing jump scares. It was late. The fire had died down because we only had it going for light and recreation. It had the chill of a late July night, but more than comfortable. I needed to pee and steeled myself because I figured one of the boys would hear me, stir, and come screw with me. Walked my happy ass out of the tent as quietly as possible and popped a squat behind a tree a little ways off. Stood up and scoped it out since the moon was full and shining. I was looking for one of the boys so he didn't terrify me. I'll say now that I started to shiver and could see my breath. I was thinking of that holler and started to get freaked out. Walking back, I saw what I thought was a cousin hunched behind a tree waiting on me. I pulled a fox trick and circled back on him and decided I'd scare him. Walked up on him with an increasing dread, but I still ignored feelings like that and persisted. I ran up behind and jumped and screamed. When I did, this thing let out a noise I've never heard and jumped straight up into the tree. Now this was a tall tree, and it jumped straight up into a ball. I flat out ran, screaming my ass off all the way back to the house. Didn't stop at the tent, didn't look back, just ran like a hound of hell, was on my heels, because I was convinced it was. I get in the house and my great-grandmother is getting dressed to walk out, looking more worried than I'd seen her, muttering about her wards or something crossing. She saw me and about fell over, asking where the boys were. Just then they all ran in, looking 3 shades of white. Turns out after my scare and screaming, they all woke up thinking it was probably just me being a 10-year-old girl in a bobcat or something scared me. Then that tree started to shake and limbs were being thrown from it. They said they heard growling and screaming, then more noises like running coming down the ridge behind them. The holler was on the other side of that ridge. They booked it. Mama prayed over us all and we didn't go back out till the next morning. Our tents had been shredded and thrown onto the coals from the fire. Nothing was left usable. We never camped out there again, and Mama spent all day hiking that ridge, burying things periodically. When I asked, she said that was our perimeter, and those wards would keep them out, or at least warn her when they crossed. That's why she was in the process of dressing when I ran in. Never knew what they were. Mama said banshees and thought it was funny I had jump scared one up a tree. LOL.
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 Now, our listeners who have listened to our Banshees episode will know that that probably was not a banshee. But what was that? I mean, that's very weird.
Very weird.
Seeing this unknown creature that's like, oh God, that's horrifying.
Horrifying, yes.
To tie it with a bow, here is the advice that one Reddit user named Mama Bear since 2011 has to say. One rule of camping in Appalachia: if you heard it, saw it, or smelled it, no you didn't. Stay in the safety of your cabin/tent, and it'll be gone by morning. But one more thing that Dems my feet has to say,
Okay.
that I think is worth saying, is the following. The woods will heal you if you ask for guidance and actually listen.
Wow.
And I think that's beautiful. I think the woods of Appalachia are, of course, home to some very spooky things,
For sure.
some unexplainable things, but also some maybe unexplainable wonderful things as well. And, you know, like she said, her great-grandmother used these plants and herbs and flowers that she found from the woods to be able to heal people.
Right.
And I just think that's beautiful. And what a wonderful part of the country.
Yes.
We can't wait to go visit soon.
Yes.
It's been too long. And once again, if anyone out there is from Appalachia, grew up there, lives there now, has friends there, family there, we want to hear your stories and add those in to whenever we do High Strangeness in Appalachia Part 2. So DM us on any of our socials, or you can email us at creepstreetpodcast@gmail.com.
Well, Maureen, I got a list of names I wouldn't mind howling outside my window.
Okay, go on.
Folks, give it on up for our top-tier Patreon subscribers. Of course, the Dream James Watkins, the Finnish Face Viet Lundqvist, the Madman Marcus Hall, the Vivacious Vicky McHugh, the Tenacious Teresa Hackworth, the Heartbreak Kid Chris Hackworth, the oh-so-suave Sean Richardson, the British Bonebreaker Bex Martin, the Notorious Nicholas Barker, the Terrifying Taylor Lashmet, the Count of Cool Cameron Corliss, the Archduke of Attitude Adam Archer, the Sinister Sam Kiker, the Nightmare of New Zealand Noeline Vivilli, the Loathsome Johnny Love, the Carnivorous Kevin Bogey, the Killer Stud Carl Staub, the Firestarter Heather Carter, the Conqueror Christopher Damian Damaris, the Awfully Awesome Annie, the Murderous Maggie Leach, the Sir of Sexy Sam Hackworth, the Evil Elizabeth Riley, Lauren Hellfire Hernandez Lopez, the Maniacal Laura Maynard, the Vicious Karen Van Buren, the Arch Nemesis Aaron Bird, the Sadistic Sergio Castillo, the Rapscallion Ryan Crum, the Beast Benjamin Huang, the Devilish Chris Doucette, the Psycho Sam, the Electric Emily Zhang, the Ghoulish Gert Hankum, the Renegade Corey Ramos, the Crazed Carlos, the Antagonist Andrew Park, the Monstrous Michaela Scherer, the Witchy Wonder J.P. Weimer, and the Freaky Ben Forsyth.
Whoa, incredible. Thank you so much for reading off those names. Our never-ending thanks to our top-tier Patreon subscribers. We're so thankful for you. Thank you to all of our Patreon subscribers, with a special shout-out to...
The brutal Brenda Gonzalez.
Brenda, thank you again for being here with us. We are so happy to have you as a member of the Creep Street Homeowners Association. You are so welcome. Thank you for joining us. Of course, thank you to all of you for listening today. And I just wanted to give a little special shout-out to friends of the program, Hannah and Zach Tomlinson. I just wanted to let you know, today and all days, we love you so much, and thank you for being with us.
Absolutely. We love you dearly, and our hearts are with you.
Always.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
Good night, and goodbye.